This is gonna be awesome. There are not many artists or designers who make me jealous. But Marion Deuchars is one who continually pisses me off. Marion is a British illustrator and author whose work is distinctly recognizable as her own. Her output is prodigious, and her presence is charming, astute, and witty, as you will hear. Marion is the author of well over 20 of the most delightful books for creative children and adults, with each being translated into numerous languages. And it is my special honor to have her here on The Right Questions. Right now, you're thinking, oh man, I wish James Victori could be my mentor, my guru. Hell, I wish he was my coach. Well, you can make that happen. Go to yourworkisagift.com. There's a questionnaire that will probably help you out, but it'll also give you access to a free call. So let's talk. Let's free you from overwhelm and creative frustration. Let's build your business and help you get paid to do what you love. Again, go to yourworkisagift.com. Let's talk. Marion, it's so great to have you here and so great to see you again.
Thank you.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you is, Marion, I don't even actually have a podcast. This isn't being recorded. I just wanted to talk with you. I'm going to be real honest with you. Just wanted to meet again.
I thought that's so sweet because actually I was thinking the same thing myself, thinking, yeah, it'd be so nice just to chat with James. I haven't spoken. Why do we need to do a podcast to do that?
Right,
yeah.
Right. Well, hopefully it will feel like that. Hey, and also one of the reasons to talk to you, like I'm trying to be selective. I'm trying to pick creatives, but not designers, not the usual creatives. But one of the reasons to talk to you is because when I go through your work, and I will pop up on your Instagram occasionally or your Twitter feed and say, hey, goddamn, that's fucking awesome. And one of the reasons is why your work strikes me when I see it. It reminds me of, there's only two other creatives who I feel have held on to their childlike sense of play like you'd have. And those are, and they were two old pals of mine. One was my regular lunch partner back when I was in New York, which is Ivan Chermayev.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one is Paul Rand.
Oh, well, I'm a big Paul Rand fan, as you can probably tell.
They both were able to, they didn't have anything childish about them. It was very childlike. The ability to play and just make something out of nothing was really delightful. And you have that spirit, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And actually, I must say, sometimes there have been days when I've maybe not been feeling quite so creative myself, and I've seen you pop up on my feed say something really great, and it's amazing how you remind you to support other creatives, to say your work's really inspired me today or whatever. And it's a real lift and a boost, isn't it? Because even although my work's very playful and looks very simple and it looks effortless, which is, I'm very happy about that. It isn't always that effortless. So it's great. And I thank you for that, actually.
I want to start with the first question that I always start with everybody with, which is, what made you weird as a kid?
Well, I don't think I was that weird, actually. But when I said to you, I was trying to think, was I weird as a kid? I wasn't weird as a kid, but I'm from a kind of classic working class Scottish background. I'm one of 6 kids, so that's already going to make me a little bit weird. And I was in the middle, and I had a lot of freedom. it was a little slightly not feral upbringing, but we were allowed to be kids and allowed to go out I lived in a small Scottish town, but you could walk into the countryside. We literally would spend all day alone from quite a young age in kind of groups of kids. So I think I wasn't weird, but I was allowed to be who I wanted to be. And I have 4 sisters and 1 brother. So there was 5 girls and 1 boy. And I actually was a tomboy until I was more than a tomboy. I kind of actually really thought I was a boy until I was about 13, 14. And no one actually ever questioned that, which is kind of weird. That was kind of weird that no one ever. What was great about that was super supportive, is I was allowed to be a boy. I think they kind of thought this is quite good for your younger brother, because otherwise he's got 5 girls playing dolls with him. So all my interests were football and Action Man and comics and super boysy things, actually. And I'm kind of very thankful for that, because I found it much more exciting and interesting. And it doesn't make me weird, but I'm just saying what was great about it is people allowed me to be who I wanted to be, regardless. No one ever questioned it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was quite dreamy, like most artists are. So I was allowed to go off and stare into space. And again, it's just, oh, she's the dreamy one. You're allowed to do that. So I'm very thankful to my parents and family for not labeling me badly. But when you're 1 of 6, you're trying to always get your own identity anyway. So I was quite happy to be the kind of dreamy, dippy, boysy one. It was fine. So that was a long answer, but I don't think I had anything that was kind of stood out in a sense that made me super weird. So I hope that answers your question.
What position were you in the kids? Were you in the middle?
I'm in the middle. I was in the middle. So
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 older sisters, 1 younger sister, and the boy was the youngest. So yeah, you can imagine. We're all literally like so close in age. Like my oldest sister's 2 years, and they're all a year apart from each other. My younger brother, younger sister are all 1 year apart. So
excellent.
It's kind of pretty tough.
The busy years.
The busy years, yeah.
Were your parents creative?
I think they probably would have been if they'd had an opportunity to be. They were really creative. They really brilliant with their hands, amazing craft skills. So my mother made a lot of our clothes. She used her hands a lot. My dad could kind of make anything as well. Like really talented, skillful parents that never got an opportunity to. Hey, you should go to art school. But my mother paints now. Actually, she paints in retirement. My father's no longer alive, but he kind of had a garage full of stuff. One of those big man sheds, and it was he could take a car apart and put it back together again. So he's could fix anything. We never ever had a handyman because he was kind of good at everything. So
how did a creative career or the possibility of a creative career come about from that place? Like you went to Royal College of Art. How did that come about from that family?
Yeah, it wasn't an artistic family. There weren't even a lot of books in the house and stuff. But my older sister was good at art, and I think I was kind of influenced by her. But she never wanted to be an artist. She wanted to be a school teacher. But she was probably my first influence. And then I always say my biggest influence was I was a comic nerd, super comic nerd, and it was an access into art. It was the only art I could see in a way. And it was accessible. And I was slightly obsessive with comics. I wasn't just like, I was reading a lot of boys' comics too, but I also joined comic conventions. And we used to have a huge comic convention in our town. Sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere, but that's where they have the comic convention. And so I kind of collected a lot of images, I suppose, from a lot of American, like New Yorker's, Mad Magazine. I didn't really, probably wasn't even reading that much. I was just probably looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
But that was that kind of triggered an interest. And then I got my label as the artist within the family. And then it just meant that aunties and uncles would buy me watercolors or paints or paper. So I got that label, and that was it. You're the artist. So that's where it kind of started. And again, through school, it wasn't like at school people were going, oh, you should go to art school. Art school was thought of as a kind of like you had nothing else better to do than go to, or if you failed, maybe you went to art school. So no one encouraged it, I would say. But my family encouraged it because I think because my parents didn't have that choice, they always said, do what you want to do. And they didn't judge and they didn't question anything. They just said, it's, your choice. So I wouldn't say the school encouraged me. The art department did, of course, because it was brilliant. It was the 70s and they had a lot of funding. They decided to fund the arts at that time. And they were super encouraging about, pursuing an art career. So yeah, over that time, I kind of went to art school in Dundee. And then from there, I ended up at Royal College at the time when there was only one master's degree in the country, if I remember rightly, for the Royal College. So.
I want to talk about your seemingly endless and deft ability to make and to play. Like me personally, like I drew when I was a kid. I drew on everything. I remember painting logos on my jeans, like Levi's, painting the Levi's logo, just, recreating popular culture. And I can draw, but I just don't like to. I don't like to. Is there anything you can't do? Are there any creative limitations?
There's lots of things I can't do. I mean, I think I work within my limitations I think I have a lot of limitations. I can't draw. I don't think I can draw much things like figurative things from imagination or very complex scenes I kind of avoid complexity probably because I'm not very good at it. And not there's lots I can do. I have friends who you can ask them to draw something and they'll draw it from memory. And I don't have that skill. And I think I have good repertoire skills. I'm a little bit rusty on it, but that's kind of where my background was I used to draw from life and paint from life. But more recently, probably I'm also not one of those artists that draws every day. Like I don't have that kind of need to kind of make something I'm saying that I think I play every day. And I think over the years I realized that's where my enjoyment was coming from. And there's no pressure on the playing. But I don't kind of make drawings every day. And I don't, I have a lot of other kind of free time interests, other things to do. I've brought up 2 kids, I'm not sort of, I'm not like, I have friends who are obsessive about drawing. And, I'm a trustee for the Quentin Blake Centre of Illustration. And he's someone who's always drawn every single day. And I kind of an admiration of that, people who really can do that. But I'm afraid that's not me.
It's funny. I was going to ask you, you are certainly even saying or eschewing any kind of schedule. You're certainly prolific as far as book output. And I will direct the audience to the numerous books. So you have no real scheduling and organization. Tell me about that.
No, I do. I think I've always had a studio. So ever since leaving college, I realized I didn't have much motivation to work from home. So we formed a studio. It was kind of like an extension of art school. We just kind of moved from art school to another building. And, over the years, I've had lots of studios and I find it's always good for me to get up and out of the house. I always call it a space away from domesticity. And so I kind of go to work in a sense. And in those hours, if you go to work, you do kind of have to do something. So that's probably why I get some work done. But I've noticed my hours recently have been getting shorter and shorter. And I'm kind of allowing myself to do that because I've been doing it a long time. And I still feel a bit guilty, strangely, if I go in a bit late and leave early. There's something, it's a big battle constantly to say I don't have to go in all the time. I don't have to be at work all the time. Because going to work has never felt like going to work either, though. Like going to studios never felt like going to work. It's a place, it's a very privileged thing to be able to have a space that you can go into. And if you drop a bottle of ink on the floor, actually it really doesn't matter. And I suppose I've always liked that kind of space to be able to go to. But certainly I probably have been quite disciplined in a sense of that I tend to try and produce something in a day, whether it's just a scribble or an idea, but it's certainly not hours of drawing. Or sometimes I just take the day off and go to a museum and just find something else to look at. Or But yeah, no, I'm looking at what I've produced. Obviously, I must do some work. I realize because I am quite good to working to quite fast deadlines because I used to work for a newspaper, and I kind of learned how to work faster because of that. Because sometimes I literally had hours to make a drawing, and it kind of quashed all that kind of fanciful thinking that you needed to wait for this inspirational moment to come along and kind of light up your life. So I just had to like focus and get it kind of produce something. So.
Yeah. I remember a number of years ago in my career when I realized that procrastination was my process. You know, the deadline was the ultimate inspiration. So I just waited and waited and waited and said, "Oh shit, it's due tomorrow," and then I could poop it out.
Deadlines are good. I mean, I think I don't know how I'd be without one, actually, to tell you the truth. Even if it's like 6 months down the line, it's like there is a kind of structure to it, which I quite enjoy.
I want to talk specifically about your lettering, because I draw with words, and you have a particular ownership of your lettering. It is recognizable as yours, which I think is wonderful. And people are always asking me about my type or my font or whatever, and I'm like, I ain't got that. I'm just trying to be honest. I'm just trying to put some words down and try to be as truthful as possible. Do you have any thoughts or relationship to when you are lettering? And there's a lovely video that I want to direct people to of yours, of that little 2.5 minute D&AD when you're making all those signs. Right. It's wonderful to watch.
I suppose I stumbled into hand lettering a long time ago, actually, around, oh God, I mean, a long time ago, I think around the millennium. So I started doing hand lettering. The first job was actually for Vince Frost for the D&AD annual. It was the first time I did a lot of hand lettering for a job. And it kind of, from that point, I kind of didn't really stop doing hand lettering. And what happened is my lettering, which was just my lettering, I didn't have to try at it. I didn't have to think about making lettering. It was my signature. Just became very, very fashionable. It became like the illustration and design. It is fashion based, isn't it? And so if a font looks right at the right time, right place, right time in history, it looks good and everyone copies it. And I think that's what happened with my hand lettering. It just looked right for the time. And so it kind of ended up everywhere. And I did do a lot of work. Okay. I did a lot of lettering, and I loved doing it because it was much easier than doing a picture. So when someone just asked me to do lettering, it was a kind of space I could go to, and you still have to be in the right mood to do lettering. It's because yours is quite energetic as well. It's depending on what you're trying to convey. If you're trying to convey sincerity or anger or happiness, you kind of get into that mode, and then that's what you produce. But yeah, now there's just a million. I think I lost my lettering in a funny sort of way. I lost ownership of it. You say, I mean, I'm kind of lucky that at least people do kind of recognize it as my lettering, but there's a few fonts that are so similar to my lettering that I could literally use them as my lettering that are not mine. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It used to bother me right at the very beginning, but I got way past that. I think if it was copying of my artwork, I'd be a bit more upset. Mm-hmm. But because it's lettering, it's I don't mind. And what I really love about your lettering is the fact that it looks individual to you. And I kind of wish there was more of that in a way that I could say, I look at your lettering and I know it's you. And I know people look at my lettering and it looks like me, but there's a million copies now. But there's room for a lot of different personalities there. And I'm surprised there's not more, actually, because your hand lettering and one's personal signature really is a kind of gateway. It's like looking into your soul. It really reveals a person when you look at lettering. And that's what I love about it. I love the emotional impact from it. That I think is very powerful. And that's why I think when you see hand lettering, you always read it much more than a font, because we're just surrounded. The world is surrounded by lettering. Mm-hmm. But hand lettering speaks to you. And I really encourage everyone to kind of develop their own hand signature and not be worried about the calligraphy of it or how beautiful it is. It's an expression of yourself. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm sure I'll still be doing a lot of hand lettering for a while to come.
Yeah, for me, it was a total shorthand because I didn't want to draw. So I could draw a lousy cow and then I could just make an arrow pointing to it and say, this is a cow. And as far as copying, I've been showing revisiting your books with my own kids. I've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and we've become very good at drawing Bob, by the way. So
Yeah, that's good. So you have to send me some.
I think a lot of, and I don't think it's just my audience, but designers in general, I feel have problems trusting their thoughts, trusting their opinions, trusting their gut. Do you have any? Does self-doubt come into the picture,
Oh, all the time.
or the
All the
time. All the time?
I think it's you swing back and forward between. I mean, sometimes I'm amazed where my confidence comes from, because without the confidence, you can't do anything. And so I'm aware of how important that is, and I'm very thankful that I kind of have it. I feel like I have it naturally, that I feel confident. But like everyone, you have days when it all just goes horribly wrong, and I really sometimes think, oh my god, I'm so crap. We really don't need any more books. And or you sometimes, if you've looked at too much social media, I think, do we really need any? I've done enough. There's so much better out there. So there's I think social media doesn't help. I've limited myself to 15 minutes a day on all social media now. I used to have timers for the kids, but now I just have them for myself, because it doesn't make me feel good. And so I think the confidence thing I need to nurture. I need to keep it there, and I need to believe that I can do good things. I need to believe what I'm doing is worthwhile. And sometimes if I look too much at other things, I think that undermines my confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I keep a tab on that. And because in the past, we used to just compare ourselves to maybe 500 people max, like maybe London. That was it. I would only be comparing myself to. I'd only sometimes see other work if I went to an exhibition. And now we're bombarded with like amazing imagery all the time, and it can be really inspiring, and it is kind of, on the positive sense, it's like, oh, there's so many creative people out there, like so many, and that is kind of brilliant to see. But other times it's kind of hard to think that you've got anything to offer, but you have to have the self-belief thing, to believe that there's so much. In the same way as music, there's always something you can kind of bring to it that's just slightly different. And that's what you're always aiming for, is just to aim for a little bit of uniqueness. Like, try and just do something that is going to be influenced by everything, and everything you've seen or done or witnessed or is already in the world. But there's something of you that's different, and if you bolt that onto it, then you get something new. And that's kind of what probably keeps me getting out of bed in the morning and making art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I work with a lot of creative adults and try to help them get through blocks and unlearn a lot of bad habits. And I think I'm often surprised at how difficult it is to get people just to believe in their work and believe in themselves. And to, even if they do have a distinguishing mark or an opinion, to allow that into their work, it's really crazy. Whereas we seem more and more these days, because like you said, we see so much. It kind of shuts us down more than opens us up. Here's a blunt question: can art save lives?
Yeah, I'm sure it can. I think actually. I think if you talk about opening up other adults to creativity, I think if there's one thing I've been trying to do with my books is share what I've learned and share what I get to experience every day, because I know that it takes me to a happy place. And so I feel like art is this amazing tool that allows you to escape into your own world for a start, but not to escape into your own world, to escape from the world, but it's a place you can go that's creates an incredible contentment. It's like a meditation in a way, isn't it? It's like there's lots of ways people can achieve that through music or gardening or making things with their hands. But so I think art is one of those magic tools that can allow you to express something about yourself. And especially if you can overcome the fear thing, which is massive for people who, we need to really change our education system to stop people to stop drawing from the minute they think they can't draw, because it's, whenever I've done workshops myself with, and I've probably done more kid workshops and adult workshops, but I always encourage the adults to join in, and they're always so scared, and yet, you know, 1 hour later they're still colouring away somewhere doing something and said, I haven't done this since I was 12 years old. And it's like, well, why haven't you done this since you're 12 years old? Who said you can't do this? You've told yourself you can't do this, or you've not allowed yourself this pleasure. And look how much pleasure you've just had today, playing with some scissors and cut paper and some glue and coloured pencils. I mean, it's there, and it's quite cheap, and it's free, and it can really be a really fulfilling use of time rather than scrolling on something.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I ask you that is obviously I have this new book, the new book, Hey Weirdo, and trying to get people to look back and remember what made them weird and understand that they are still, like I am still that 6-year-old kid. You know, I've gotten taller, but that's about it. And I try to hold on to that creativity. One of the things I love about mostly all of your work, and again, that childlike sense of play, but for your books, whether they're board books or whether they're, even the more recent, how to draw books, they're not for kids. They're, I've had so many creative adults that I've sent your books to saying, you ask me how to play. I don't understand that, but here's a book. You've forgotten how to play. I don't know how to tell you how to play, but here's a book to guide you. Tell me about what that's like, trying to kind of recreate that childlike play for adults.
Actually, the last book I've just done, So Make Everyday Creative, was specifically for that question you've just asked. It was, I think my very first book I did on art creativity was also for adults, but it ended up being, it's kind of for everyone, but it ended up being mainly targeted at children. But this book, which probably in the bookshelf ends up in the children's section, but really is kind of meant to be aimed more at adults, so the language is a little bit more sophisticated, and you could use burneathing. You could use tools that weren't blunt scissors or something, because you didn't have to be child friendly. I really tried to tune into that. So I tried to tune into, you can't make something too difficult to attain, for example. Like, you can't make an exercise too hard. You can't make a kind of show a finished thing and it's so beautiful that no one knows how you got there. So I tried to show processes or try to show ideas so that people could actually do things for themselves and enjoy that thing that I'm talking about, that I get the most pleasure from, which is the process of making work. And it's not about the final thing. And if you get the final thing, it's a kind of bonus, but it's not really where all the pleasure comes from. All the pleasure comes from the making and the changing and the not knowing. Like the surprise element of art is just kind of fantastic. And so I try to really tune into all of those kind of things, even just spending a day mixing up colors. How many times do you mix colors? Or how many times you just decide to focus on one thing when you're walking out on your walk, just focus on one color? I kind of walk to work every day and try to tune into how on earth do I keep up my enthusiasm for making stuff every day? Surely I've run out of ideas by now. Surely I'm bored. And I think, well, what do? Well, I tend to start with one tiny little thing, and I'll just be picking up leaves one day, and somehow I'll have to do something with the leaves, or I'll dip them in ink, or I'll print them, or I'll chop them up. But I have to start with something. And a lot of musicians I've heard say a very similar thing, is you can't start from nothing. You can't just come up with an idea. You can't just come up with, something creative. But if you start with something, it leads to something. And I think Jasper Johns, I think I quoted it in the book, said, just do something, get something, do something to it, then do something to that, and then do something to that. And I think that is actually all I do every day. That's kind of my mantra in a way, is actually how you get things, how things get made in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll try to really like get people to open up that side of themselves where, you know, I try to say that creativity is not just about drawing, and that's the big lie in a way, that it's about being able to draw well. It's never just been about being able to draw well. It's definitely an enhanced way of looking at the world and experiencing the world. And it means if you tuned in too much, it's a bit like if you really tuned into the wonders of what is around you, you'd be so overwhelmed you wouldn't be able to actually like move. So it's just tuning in certain aspects of it and just getting the enjoyment of it. Just sometimes I really got into listening recently, like just kind of focusing on kind of rustling or listening and whatever sound I can hear, and just tuning into that and nothing else. And that's a creative act as far as I'm concerned. So everyone can do that.
Excellent. Here's another kind of blunt question. I know, well, you're involved with the Quentin Blake Center, and I think you're involved in some other social initiatives like the Watershed Project. And does creativity have a moral or a civic or a cultural responsibility?
Probably has a cultural responsibility. I mean, I think illustration in particular has a way, it's a great communication tool, isn't it? And there's so many ways of putting really difficult information into pictures that make it accessible to people. So I think I'm kind of, again, an admiration of people who can do quite political work, for example. Like, it's something I've struggled with a bit. I have done some posters, and it doesn't come easy to me. And I suppose when I worked for a newspaper, I kind of had to work on ideas, and in a sense the aesthetic had to come second to the idea. But that was a good learning thing to have to do, that you realize you just need to get the message across, and it doesn't always have to look pretty. And probably my work has a tendency to go down the attractive route, you know, like I naturally want to make things look good. I can't, like, that's just what I do, that's my particular stance. But so when I'm asked to do something that's tricky, I still have to kind of go down that route, but try and put a twist on it or whatever. But I think it really can have. I mean, illustration is just illuminating words generally, or illuminating an idea, and it's going from one language into another. And the more you can get across, whether it's political or you know, saying something, a movement for change or whatever, then of course imagery can do that. Mm-hmm. I think, and it has done in the past. It's just, sometimes if you look at things like political posters online, you'll get every single cliched ideas you can think of. But sometimes you also just have to work with the cliche and you'll get a breakthrough. But it's obviously, I'm not the only person who finds it difficult to do, because there's so many horrible kind of visual references out there to find on difficult subjects. But no, I think people can do it in many different ways. They can write a children's story that could be highly political, or they can take they don't have to always do it through the art. They can do it in the writing or in other ways. But I think we have to work to our strengths. Is what you can do your bit, I suppose. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying.
We are in a like I said before we started the official conversation. We both started in the design field at the dawn of computers, and now we're at a new dawn, the dawn of AI, and there's a lot of fear about it floating around. I myself am not, of course, but I want to ask you kind of a question about that, not about that. What does the future of creativity look like to you?
Oh God, it depends if I've got my optimistic hat on or my pessimistic hat on. Which one do you want to hear first?
Both.
I think okay, my optimistic hat is that we never, that stories and pictures and music, you could say, human beings can't, it's what define us. We can't do without it. And they're ever evolving, ever changing. So in some aspects, I was like, we'll always have stories, we'll always have pictures, we'll always have music. I don't know what form they'll be in. They may be not recognizable to us, but I think they will still exist. So that's my optimistic, is there's no fear, because we have this ability to keep, even with the same tools, like with a pencil or with paint, far less going into like, conceptual art or sculpture, whatever. What you can produce in that and the variety still blows my mind, actually. But you think everything's been done with painting, and then someone does something else with painting. You think, why has no one done that before? So that's my optimistic hat, that we keep doing that. My pessimistic hat is I do have some fears over AI, only because I'm on the kind of mode of thinking that I wanted it to do my can'ts and not draw a picture for me. I want it to do all the boring things, and I don't know. It's doing all the things that require human interaction. There's lots of, I feel like a really grumbly old person sometimes, but I do want someone to serve me. I do want someone on the end of the phone. I don't want robots. They're not particularly interested. I don't mind if they're going to be doing an eye operation for me or cutting me. There's certain things that are really, really difficult for a human being to do. But why did they go for creativity first? And again, I have to twist it, because although I'm being pessimistic, I'm still optimistic that we as humans are interested in other humans. We always will be. And no matter if AI produces some amazing artwork, it'll be, yeah, but it's AI. It's not a real person. And I think we're interested in humanity. And I can't remember, I was looking at something the other day. It was kind of like a little toy I've got from Mexico. It's been handmade, and it has some embroidery on it and some other bits and bobs. And I thought, why do I like that? Why have I kept that for 30 years? And it's because, a bit like I was talking about the lettering, that you can see a person behind it. With an object or a picture or something that's drawn, that's made by hand, it has a different level of communication that you resonate with and you enjoy more, and you want to hold it and you want to look at it. And I don't think we'll lose that unless we lose interest in humanity. Then I think we'll be all right.
Excellent. Marion, you're a delight to speak with. I'll have to do part 2 of this fake and I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your energy and your spirit with me and my audience. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.